When the heart reaches its quietest weakness, a shift begins deep within, unseen, unannounced, yet unmistakably real. The strength you tried to gather slips through your fingers, and the weight you carried for so long refuses to move another inch. In that fragile stillness, where your own power dissolves, a mercy that has been waiting silently steps forward. Ibni Arabi would describe this as the opening of the hidden door, the door that only appears when the soul finally stops fighting itself. What feels like collapse to you is, in truth, the release that allows divine support to enter. Your exhaustion becomes a signal sent to the unseen, and the unseen answers long before your lips ask for help. From this sacred point of surrender, Allah begins arranging strength you never knew you had. He gathers what's scattered inside you, He lifts what your heart can no longer carry, and He fills the emptiness with a peace that flows only to those who have reached the edge of their endurance. In the place where your strength ends, His support unfolds softly, perfectly, showing you that the limit you feared is the place where Allah begins. Weakness does not arrive as an accident. It appears when the soul has carried more than it was designed to hold alone. At that fragile edge, when your hands feel empty and your strength slips away, something far greater begins moving toward you. The turning point is not in your collapse, but in the unseen invitation your weakness sends to the mercy that has always been waiting to approach. The heart often resists admitting how tired it truly is. It pushes itself beyond its limits, believing endurance is the same as strength. But in Ibn Arabi's vision, true strength is born only when human effort reaches its final breath. For only then does the soul open enough for divine mercy to pour into the spaces that exhaustion has cleared. When weakness enters, it carries a message the mind does not immediately understand. It whispers that you are not meant to walk alone, that surrender is not defeat, and that the one who formed your heart has already decreed relief long before your struggle began. This awareness marks the beginning of a transformation hidden beneath the surface. The turning point arrives quietly. Nothing dramatic announces it, no shift in the air, no sign in the world. Yet inside you, a softness begins forming where resistance once lived. The soul stops holding its wounds tightly and lets them breathe. This release becomes the opening through which divine compassion flows with gentle precision. Weakness strips away illusions you once relied on. You begin to see that the parts of your life you believed were under control were never in your hands at all. This clarity brings both trembling and relief, for it reveals that your burden is not failure, but a call to be carried by something greater than your own will. At this turning point, the heart feels both fragile and strangely alive. Every emotion becomes clearer, every breath deeper, every moment filled with a quiet awareness that something beyond your understanding is unfolding. Your weakness becomes a lens through which divine mercy becomes visible, illuminating the path you thought was fading. There is a sacred beauty in this state. When human strength fades, the soul's true reliance reveals itself. You begin to feel the nearness of the one who never abandons. Weakness becomes the place where your heart learns how to lean, how to trust, and how to surrender without fear of falling. Ibn Arabi would describe this as the awakening of the inner heart, where the self finally stops pretending to possess its own power. In this awakening, the mercy that has been circling your life begins descending, touching your wounds with a tenderness that dissolves the hardness created by years of struggle. As the heart loosens its grip on control, a soft unfolding begins inside. The emotions you once wrestled with lose their weight. Memories that carried pain begin to quieten. Thoughts that once overwhelmed you now pass through like winds across a calm sea. This is the effect of a stronger mercy entering a weary soul. Weakness teaches the soul humility, and humility invites closeness to Allah. When you lower your head in surrender, you unknowingly rise in His nearness. This paradox becomes the turning point. The weaker you feel, the more room Allah creates within you for his gentleness to settle and reshape your inner world. The mercy that responds to weakness does not rush, nor does it overwhelm. It arrives step by step, breath by breath, filling the cracks left behind by your efforts. This slow restoration is intentional, for it allows your heart to recognize every touch of divine care and anchor itself deeply in gratitude. At the turning point, you begin to notice signs you once overlooked. Small comforts arrive unexpectedly. A thought that once burdened you suddenly loses its power. A heaviness lifts without explanation. These subtle shifts are reflections of a mercy working quietly behind the scenes of your life. Weakness softens your perception. You start to recognize that every difficulty you faced was guiding you toward this moment of surrender. The turning point reveals the meaning behind past trials, not as punishments, but as gentle pushes toward a place where divine mercy can finally reach you fully. In this unfolding, you learn that weakness is not the end of your journey, but the doorway to a higher beginning. Your soul becomes more receptive, more aware, more connected to the truth that Allah's support is not earned through strength, but received through authenticity and openness. As you rest in this state, the heart experiences a profound quiet. It is not the quiet of emptiness, but the quiet of being held. Every tear becomes lighter, every fear less sharp, every uncertainty softened by the assurance that you are no longer walking unsupported. Slowly, you begin to trust this mercy not out of desperation, but out of recognition. You feel its consistency, its warmth, its precision. You understand that the help arriving now was always written for you, waiting for the moment when your heart was ready to receive it fully. Weakness becomes a teacher, showing you that control was never the source of your stability. The true foundation has always been Allah's nearness, His care, His careful rearranging of your path. With this understanding, peace begins to return to places inside you that have been restless for years. The turning point deepens as you release the remnants of resistance. You stop demanding answers and begin accepting alignment. You stop fighting what is unfolding and begin trusting the one unfolding it. This acceptance invites an even stronger mercy, a mercy that not only heals but transforms. What was once heavy becomes light. What was once confusing becomes meaningful. What was once painful becomes a passage toward clarity. And in this renewed clarity, you realize the truth Ibn Arabi spent his life teaching. Weakness is not the breaking of the soul, but the moment it becomes capable of receiving divine strength. The turning point becomes a return to humility, to trust, to surrender, to the source who has been waiting for your heart to lay down its burden. In your weakness, Allah reveals His strength, and in His strength you discover your path again, this time guided by a mercy far greater than anything you carried alone. When the heart reaches a depth where it can no longer lift itself, a subtle shift begins that the mind cannot measure. It does not appear as strength returning, nor as clarity dawning, but as a softening of the weight pressing against the soul. This softening is the first sign of a mercy working beneath the surface, quiet, precise, and unseen. What feels like collapse is actually the moment something higher takes hold. The hidden lifting begins in silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence where your struggle is finally acknowledged by the unseen. In this silence, the layers of exhaustion that once blurred your vision start to dissolve. The heart discovers a faint sense of being carried, even though nothing externally has changed. This is the mercy that moves without footsteps. Your heart may not recognize this lifting at first. It often arrives disguised as a breath that feels slightly easier, or a thought that weighs less than it did before. It may come as a moment where the overwhelming seems just a little more bearable. These tiny shifts are not coincidences. They are the threads of divine care pulling you upward from within. Ibn Arabi would describe this hidden lifting as a meeting between the soul and the mercy appointed to protect it. This meeting does not occur in the outer world, but in the unseen chambers of the heart. When the heart can no longer rise, divine support descends to its level, embracing its weakness as an invitation rather than a flaw. The lifting is gentle because the heart is fragile. Harshness would break it further, so Allah sends mercy in the form of softness. You may feel a warmth spreading inside, or a calm resting upon your chest, or the sudden absence of a fear that haunted you. Each sensation is a sign that your heart is no longer rising alone. It is being lifted. This lifting often begins with the heart surrendering its struggle, not because it has given up, but because it has reached the end of what it can carry alone. The soul, in its exhaustion, becomes receptive in ways it never was during strength. And in this receptivity, divine aid flows freely, restoring what effort could not. As the lifting continues, the heart begins to rediscover a sense of direction. It does not suddenly gain answers, but it feels less lost. The inner fog starts to clear, revealing pathways that were hidden when the heart was burdened. This newfound clarity does not come from the mind, it is a gift sent through mercy. There is a moment in this lifting when you realize that you are breathing differently. The breath no longer fights its way through tightness. It flows with ease, as though something has gently expanded the space inside you. This expansion is the mercy making room for peace, preparing the heart to rise again with support rather than strain. The lifting brings awareness. You start to sense that certain thoughts are no longer yours to hold. The emotions that once consumed you begin to loosen their grip. Even the worries that felt permanent start fading. This is not your doing. It is the work of the one who strengthens hearts through his nearness. In the unseen, angels draw close to the heart that cannot rise alone. They surround it with compassion, shielding it from its own heaviness. This unseen assistance is why, after days of feeling crushed, you suddenly find a spark of hope returning. That hope is the mark of hidden lifting taking place beyond your awareness. This lifting also realigns the heart's priorities. What felt urgent begins to lose its power, and what truly matters begins to feel clearer. The heart that once scrambled in confusion now settles into quiet understanding. This realignment is not forced. It is a product of divine care, gently repositioning your inner world. As the lifting deepens, you notice that pain no longer defines every moment. It remains, but it softens. It becomes something you can sit with instead of something you must escape. This shift is a sign of inner strength being rebuilt, not from your own effort, but from Allah's mercy intertwining with your weakness. One of the most beautiful signs of hidden lifting is the return of small joys. A sunrise, a breeze, a quiet moment, things that once went unnoticed begin to touch your heart again. These small joys are reminders from Allah that He has not left you drowning. He is guiding you back toward light, one gentle step at a time. The lifting also teaches the heart to trust what it cannot explain. You feel better without knowing how. You feel guided without seeing the path. You feel lighter without removing the source of your pain. This unexplained ease is a signature of divine intervention, an echo of mercy working silently within you. As the heart rises slowly, it gains a deeper understanding of its own nature. It recognizes that true elevation never came from personal strength, but from divine closeness. Weakness becomes a sacred place rather than a flaw. It becomes the very ground where mercy plants roots that later blossom into inner resilience. The lifting humbles the heart, but in a beautiful way. You begin to acknowledge that you were never carrying yourself alone, even in moments you believed you were abandoned. This humility deepens your gratitude, turning your pain into a doorway for spiritual awakening. You begin to see that your weakness was the invitation Allah had been waiting for. When the heart can finally rise a little, it rises differently than before. It rises not from force, but from faith, not from resistance, but from surrender. It moves with a softness that comes from knowing it is being held. This new rising is steadier, more meaningful, more connected to the divine rhythm guiding your life. In this stage of lifting, You begin to feel protected in ways you didn't earlier. Situations that once overwhelmed you now meet a heart fortified with calm. The inner storms lose their intensity. You respond to challenges from a place of security rather than fear. This transformation is a direct result of the heart no longer rising alone. The lifting also reconnects you with purpose. When the weight lifts even slightly, your soul can sense direction again. You remember who you are, what matters, and who you belong to. The confusion that once clouded your identity begins to dissolve. This clarity is the fruit of divine mercy nurturing your spirit. And when the lifting reaches its fullness, you realize that what you thought was the end was actually the beginning of a deeper companionship with Allah. Your weakness did not sink you. It summoned a mercy that carried you. And now, with a heart rising not alone but supported, you step into life renewed, strengthened by a help that was written for you all along. When burdens finally crack open under their own weight, something hidden begins to rise from within the heart. It is not strength, not clarity, not relief, at least not at first. It is a subtle warmth, a quiet reminder that Allah's nearness grows closest when everything else falls away. The breaking becomes the doorway through which divine closeness enters without resistance. The weight you carried for so long becomes the very reason you begin to feel Allah in places you once felt alone. As your burdens fracture, the spaces between the pieces fill with mercy you never noticed before. What once felt like unbearable pressure becomes the unraveling of walls that kept divine tenderness at a distance. In Ibn Arabi's understanding, the heart is most receptive when it breaks. A whole heart is too full of itself, too occupied with its own strength. But a broken heart becomes hollow in the most sacred way, hollow enough for Allah's nearness to echo within it. And in that echo, you discover a presence that was always there but long obscured. Divine nearness does not descend with noise or spectacle. It arrives quietly, settling into the cracks created by hardship. Each fracture becomes a window through which a new light enters. This light carries a reassurance that cannot be described in words, only felt in the softening of a previously heavy soul. The breaking of burdens reveals how deeply Allah has been guiding you. While you struggled, you thought you were being pushed toward collapse. But as the weight splits open, you see you were being led toward surrender. And surrender, in the language of the unseen, is the moment divine closeness breathes through you. Sometimes the nearness is not felt instantly. The breaking can feel chaotic, filled with emotions you cannot control. Yet even in that chaos, Allah surrounds you in ways your awareness cannot yet detect. The soul senses what the mind cannot, that the one who breaks is also the one who heals, and he breaks only to reveal himself more clearly. As the burdens crumble, the heart begins to understand that nothing was taken to harm you. Everything removed created space for something higher: connection, surrender, guidance, peace. The nearness that appears during this unraveling is unlike the nearness felt in comfort. It is intimate, intense, and deeply transformative. This nearness teaches the heart to look inward instead of outward. When everything external fails to hold you up, you turn toward the one who never falters. In that turning, the soul experiences a closeness that reshapes its reality. The breaking becomes a blessing, for it redirects you toward the only true source of support. The divine draws nearest when you feel the most undone. Not because he was far before, but because your heart finally lowers itself enough to feel him. The shattered pieces become receptive points, each one a reminder that Allah does not need perfection to approach. He needs sincerity born through vulnerability. In the aftermath of breaking, the silence that follows holds a strange comfort. It is in that silence that the soul becomes aware of being accompanied. You realize you are not navigating your pain alone. You are being guided through it, held in it, shaped by it. Pain becomes a teacher of nearness rather than a barrier to it. As the burdens continue to crack, the heart grows softer. Its defenses fall, its arrogance dissolves, its illusions fade. This softening is necessary, for divine nearness cannot be felt through hardened emotions. The breaking prepares the heart to receive what strength never could, a direct encounter with Allah's compassion. In this nearness, every breath begins to feel different. Each inhale carries a trace of comfort. Each exhale releases some of the weight you carried. You begin to feel accompanied in even your smallest moments. This companionship is the essence of divine closeness revealed through hardship. The burdens you thought would destroy you become the very things that reshape you. Through them, Allah pulls away attachments, false beliefs, and internal knots you were unaware of. As they loosen, a tenderness flows in one that assures you that nothing is taken without something more meaningful being offered. The breaking allows your heart to see truths it once ignored. You recognize how deeply you depended on what could never hold you, and how lightly you valued the one who always did. This realization is painful but liberating. It awakens a new form of gratitude that emerges from seeing Allah's hand in both hardship and healing. When divine nearness settles into your wounds, it transforms their meaning. The pain does not vanish instantly, but it becomes sanctified. It turns into a reminder of Allah's attention, His care, His involvement in your inner world. Each wound begins to glow with the knowledge that you were never abandoned. The heart begins to rebuild itself through this nearness, not with its old strength, but with a new resilience shaped by surrender. You find yourself becoming gentler, wiser, more patient. This transformation is not self-made, it is the imprint of divine companionship working quietly within you. As the broken places heal, the heart develops a deeper trust. You no longer fear burden, for you know it carries hidden mercy. You no longer fear breaking, for you know it brings nearness. The heart becomes unafraid of weakness, understanding it as the place where Allah's presence becomes most visible. In the deepest cracks, divine light settles. This light is not harsh, it is warm and guiding. It reveals a path forward you could not see before. The path is not free of difficulty, but now you walk it with a heart strengthened not by effort, but by proximity to the one who holds all things. And when the lifting is complete, you understand what the breaking was for. It was not to crush you, but to clear the way. It was not to empty you, but to fill you. Through the fracture of your burdens, Allah revealed His nearness in a way you could never have felt through comfort. The breaking became the beginning of becoming whole. When your strength dissolves and every attempt to move forward collapses, a sacred stillness forms around your heart. This stillness is not emptiness. It is the quiet clearing where Allah begins to plant a new path. You may feel as if life has paused, but in truth, the unseen is rearranging everything in your favor. The moment your efforts fail is the moment His design begins. There is a point where the heart runs out of direction, where plans stop working, and every solution turns into dust. It is here that Allah opens a way that was never dependent on your ability. This new beginning does not arrive with loud signs, but with a gentle shift in your soul, a shift that whispers, "You are being carried from here." At the edge of your exhaustion, a divine unfolding begins. What you thought was the end of your journey becomes the starting point of something written long before your worry existed. Allah takes what you could not complete and rewrites it with a precision that only divine wisdom can craft. Your failure becomes the soil in which His guidance grows. Ibn Arabi teaches that when human strength fades, divine action enters. This is not because you earned it, but because your heart became open enough to receive it. In your inability, Allah reveals His absolute ability. The doors you tried to force open remain closed, yet the door He chooses glides open effortlessly at the perfect moment. When your efforts no longer move you, Allah moves what effort could not touch. Suddenly, burdens ease without explanation. Roads that once felt blocked begin to clear. You feel a quiet direction pulling you not from thought, but from within. This is the new beginning taking shape, wrapped in mercy you did not request, but were always meant to receive. The unfolding often begins in darkness, not because the path is hidden, but because only darkness teaches you how to feel a light that is not of this world. Your eyes may not see the change, but your heart senses a softness, a shift, a nearness. This nearness is the seed of your new beginning. Allah does not rush your transformation. He unfolds it slowly, tenderly, in ways that honor the fragility of your heart. Each step He prepares is measured with wisdom. Each delay carries protection. Each redirection rewrites your destiny with greater alignment to who you are becoming. When your efforts fall silent, your soul becomes more aware of the movements of the unseen. You begin noticing signs you once overlooked, moments of ease, unexpected clarity, sudden peace. These are not random comforts. They are gentle introductions to the path opening beneath your feet. The new beginning often appears in the same place where you felt trapped. The environment may not change, but your heart transforms. What overwhelmed you before now feels bearable. What confused you now feels purposeful. Allah does not always change your surroundings. Sometimes He changes your vision so you can walk through them. As Allah unfolds your new beginning, you will feel a strange sense of being guided. You may not know where you're going, but you sense you're not walking alone. This companionship ignites a quiet courage, one that doesn't rely on confidence, but on trust in the one who is leading you. There comes a moment when you realize that losing your strength was not a downfall but a preparation. Allah removed your reliance on yourself so you could rely entirely on Him. This shift from self to surrender marks the true beginning of your transformation. During this unfolding, your heart will soften in ways you never expected. The walls built from fear and disappointment begin to fall. You find yourself open to hope again, open to possibility, open to divine rewriting. This openness is part of the new beginning, an inner rebirth that precedes any outward change. Slowly, the path you once begged for begins to lose its appeal. Instead, a new path emerges, one shaped by wisdom rather than desire. This path carries a sense of alignment, as though each step is placed for you rather than by you. And as you walk it, peace becomes your companion. What once felt like stagnation becomes revelation. You begin understanding why certain things didn't work out, why certain people left, why certain doors closed. The wisdom hidden behind every difficulty becomes visible, and you see how each hardship was positioning you for this precise new beginning. In this divine unfolding, your heart becomes more sensitive to truth. You can distinguish between attachments that drain and connections that elevate. You can sense what pulls you away from Allah and what draws you closer. This clarity is not the result of effort, it is the fruit of surrender. There is a sweetness in realizing that Allah was preparing your new chapter long before you realized your old one was ending. Every delay was a form of protection. Every disappointment was a redirection. Even your exhaustion was part of the script written so you would stop relying on your strength and discover His. As the new beginning becomes clearer, your heart feels lighter. The heaviness that once clouded your mind fades. You find yourself breathing with ease again, walking with intention again, hoping without fear again. This renewal is a mercy disguised as a fresh start. In this journey, Allah replaces what you lost with something more fitting for your soul. Not always immediately, but always perfectly. What was taken had served its time. What is given is meant to elevate you. The new beginning holds gifts you could not have received while holding on to the old. The unfolding reaches its completion when your heart feels anchored, even if the world around you remains uncertain. You no longer fear what you cannot control. You no longer measure your worth by your strength. You walk gently, with the quiet certainty that your steps are being guided from beyond the scene. And as you step into this new beginning, you understand the secret. Your effort stopping was never the end. It was the moment Allah began moving you with a mercy greater than anything your strength could have achieved. The journey forward is not yours to push, it is His to unfold. When your strength ends, your story does not. It is only the point where Allah steps in with a mercy you could never have reached on your own. Every burden that broke you, every effort that failed, was guiding you toward this very moment of divine nearness. Let your heart rest now. Your weakness was never a barrier. It was the doorway through which Allah began uplifting you. And as you walk forward, know that you are no longer moving by your strength, but by the One who never lets a weary soul fall.